Well, hello and good afternoon. We are just getting everything, well, I'm just getting everything ready. Don't know what that's all about, the royal we. Just getting everything ready for this afternoon's flight going from Bergerac in western France back to Birmingham. It's the second part of today's streams. We flew from Birmingham to Bergerac earlier today, and now this is the return leg heading back to Birmingham. So let's kick in the plane. As you can see there, the plane is pretty much ready. All the vehicles set, ready for us to make our way back to Birmingham. So I'll put us in the cockpit in a minute. I've just got to get a few things ready and then we'll be on our way. So today's flight plan is actually relatively simple, far more simple than it was when we flew here earlier on. The waypoints are less, and we quite literally we come out of here and head straight sort of northwest. Well, north. It's a northerly track, and hopefully if it's a 3-3 approach into Birmingham, although I'm not sure what weather conditions have loaded in. If it's the actual ones for the area, then we should be looking at a 3-3 approach. Then it should be a pretty quick flight. I reckon we can probably get it done in an hour and 20 minutes flying time. That's chocks away to chocks back on. So we'll see. We'll start preparing for departure then, and we'll get underway.
Tower 884, ready to copy IFR clearance to Birmingham 884.
That's great, 10,000 feet to start off with, so that's always useful.
10,000, departure frequency is +190.275, squawk 4113. 884, cleared to Birmingham Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 10,000. Departure at 119.275. Squawk 4113. 884. Readback is correct. Contact ground on 119.8 when ready to taxi.
So, I mean, this is something that I say regularly when doing these flights. Is that under 10,000 feet you can only go up to 250 knots, but because we're cleared to 10,000 feet immediately after departure, we'll only slow for 250 for a very short while, and then obviously we can open up the tanks and plough on further, quicker, earlier, which means that we can reduce the flight time quite significantly, in fact, for this leg of the flight back to Birmingham. Okay, so that's everything entered into the autopilot for the initial legs of the flight. Let's just make sure that everything else is all set and basically ready for us to go. Lights are all on. Should be able to confirm that from the tail view of the plane on the left. That's not looking like they're on. Let's see. Could be to do with this other thing. Let's have a look at the utilities. So we do need to start getting rid of some of these vehicles around the plane. Okay, so that bus can vanish. There we go. We will close the door. Yeah, so we're all closed. We'll have them stairs away. And now we'll ask for pushback clearance and start clearance. Although we don't need start clearance, we're already started. We didn't shut down for the purposes of this flight. So it really is just push back and go today.
Taxi 2 and hold short runway 28 via taxiway Bravo, runway 10884.
Okie dokie. There's no, because it's the very basic of basic FS airports, there's no tow truck. We don't really have to look out for any traffic either, because there's none of that. Oh, there's a bit of GA there. But we've got no commercial traffic to tend with. Once we get back to Birmingham, I'm hoping it hasn't so far since I've got back into Flight Simulator again, but I'm hoping it might give us one of the air bridge stands, because it actually looks really good with this aircraft with the air bridge attaching, but we'll have to see what happens when we touch down on arrival. Okay. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Right, so we've got to do a U-turn when we get to the end of the runway. That should be interesting then. Let's have a go with this. Normally when I do these charter flights, I end up in places like Corfu. Corfu's a good one. That's a turnaround at the end of the runway.
Foxtrot, uniform, whiskey, Quebec, uniform, cleared at Montpellier Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climate maintained, 900,000. Departure on 119.275, squawk 3255. Cessna, whiskey, Quebec, uniform, read back correct.
Okay, we're underway. Start the clock.
There's your ground. Cessna,
22 minutes past the hour.
Quebec, uniform, ready to taxi IFR. Cessna, Foxtrot, uniform, whiskey, Quebec, uniform, taxi 2 and hold short of runway 28 via taxiway Bravo, runway 10, contact tower on 119.8 when ready. Taxiing, hold short, runway 28.
That Cessna there that caused us so much problems on the arrival, it probably is. It's probably going to hamper my departure now as well. if you haven't seen it, there's a it's in the collection on Twitch and also on my YouTube channel, where Cessna absolutely knackered our approach into this airport, and we had to do a go around, which was really riveting fun. So the videos are twitch.tv/jcasey, JAYCASEY. Now have I got to hold short? Yeah, got to hold short. I just hope we don't fall through the runway as we taxi down it. And then for the takeoff run, because obviously that won't be a lot of fun. Oh, okay, so we've got to request takeoff clearance from here.
Tower 884, ready for IFR departure, runway 28, hold position, Cessna Whiskey, Quebec, uniform. 884, cleared for takeoff, runway 28. Cleared for takeoff, runway 28, 884.
So we're going to run down the runway, turn around at the bottom, and then come back up. So let's set our flaps for departure.
Cessna Whiskey, Quebec, uniform, continue taxi. Roger, Cessna Whiskey, Quebec, uniform.
Oh, the scenery at this airport really is the most basic. Oh well, it'll do for the purposes we need it for. It's one to check off the list. We haven't sunk into the runway yet. Excuse me, that's good.
Bergerac Tower, Cessna Foxtrot, uniformed, Whiskey, Quebec, uniformed, ready for IFR departure, runway 28.
Okay, there's the turning circle on the left.
Uniform, hold short, runway 28. Traffic is Boeing 737 on the runway. Hold short, runway 28. Cessna Whiskey, Quebec, uniformed.
Really close with the rear wheels there, wasn't it? Need a lot of power to make this now do what is basically a 180. Let's make sure that Cessna has actually held short, because I'm pretty convinced that was the Cessna that caused us the problems the last time. That is a really good turnout, actually, considering. Quite proud of that. Right, and we're cleared to go straight away, so let's go full power on. And the Cessna's waiting, that's nice of him. V1, rotate, positive, climb, V2.
Position and hold. Cessna, Whiskey, Quebec, uniform. 884. Contact 10 departure on 11.275. 11.275.
Bit of buffer in there as we took off out. Let's get the speed controls in quick. And there's the throttle back. Something's going wrong here. Not sure what's happened, but
Sync rate.
this is why you shouldn't fly with a keyboard. Should always really use some form of control column, because well, we're playing ball now. And into the turn to get us onto the flight track, which is there. So reaching the top of the climb, we should be given our next altitude. Slow the climb down a bit, pick up some speed. We can bring the flaps in now as well. So up to 20,000 now. Hammer on some speed, bring all the flaps back. So a slight turn to the left here now, which establishes us onto our flight path, flight plan, which you can see in the bottom left on the GPS. We'll just have a quick look on there. 5 waypoints including Birmingham, so pretty direct really. And it's actually that there's not a lot of turns involved with this route. It's very much straight with just a few little left turns to keep us on track, but other than that, very direct indeed. So in the flight plan we requested 32,000 feet for the cruise. We're about to get told to probably go up to about 28,000 feet before the final. Oh, let's just have a look. 9 o'clock. Yeah, got it. Yeah, so oh, up to cruise. That's okay then. But then by the time we get to the cruising altitude, we won't be there for very long, but I don't anticipate we're going to get to the cruising altitude. I don't think we're going to get to the cruising altitude until we're passing the northern coast of France, at which point we would only be there for a few minutes before we start the descent into Birmingham anyway. So there's two planes passing by us. Cessna just went underneath and now an MD-83. High up there, 33,000 feet, is that? 33,000 feet, yeah. So we're 39 miles from the next waypoint. Slight left turn once we reach there. That'll send us up over to the northern coast, Normandy basically, as we head towards the English Channel. Like I say, I expect we'll reach the cruise at 32,000 feet, not have that much time there to be honest before we begin descending then for the approach to Birmingham. We're currently with Bordeaux Centre, but that'll pretty quickly change once we pass this next waypoint for Brest Centre, who will see us over the channel at least. So we're passing through, just passed through 22,000 feet, heading up to 32,000 feet, and cruising along quite nicely at 321 knots. I did set 325, but obviously still in the climb at the moment. Currently at a ground speed of 447 knots, so we're not doing too bad at all. So 5 miles out then of the next waypoint, take a slight left turn then up towards the French coastline, the English Channel. And there's the turn. Very gentle indeed. So despite us still climbing, this is essentially the cruise section of this flight. 130 miles to the next waypoint. It's just flying dead straight, continuing the gentle climb to 32,000 feet. We're just past 26,000 feet now, so won't be long until we level off. Contact Paris Centre here now. And that happens in real life as well, that as a plane transitions through different sectors, it will be handed off to the differing controllers at different locations. But as I was saying, we're nearing the cruise of this flight now. We'll level out shortly at 32,000 feet, 120 miles to the French coastline. I'd expect that we would get descent instructions for Birmingham once we cross the English coastline. And looking on the plan, that's going to be about around the Isle of Wight. Weather's building up. It's actually looking pretty real world, that, because the weather is pretty rubbish over the UK at the minute. So we're just over half an hour into the flight, about 34 minutes into the flight. I would suggest we've probably got another 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes before we start getting instructions more heavily about what the approach to Birmingham is going to be like. And if these weather conditions that have loaded in are anything like the real world conditions outside at the moment, it could be quite interesting indeed in terms of wind shear on arrival into Birmingham. It's one of those airports that is notorious for it, shall we say. Okay, overspeed warning. I should have seen that coming really. Sitting back, taking it easy too much that was. Get that fixed in a jiffy. The auto throttle should be able to sort that out, deal with the clicker for a little while whilst the plane slows itself down. The engines have powered back a little bit now, so we should start bleeding that speed off. There we go. Normality resumed. And again, we are at 32,000 feet now though, so we'll probably slow down another 5 knots. Some traffic ahead as well, but we are above that now at 32,000. At the cruise ahead, that's to be it. That was expected. The handover to Brest Centre was anticipated at that point. Brest Centre always handle everything outgoing from France across the English Channel. It will very likely we will probably get our descent instructions from Brest Centre as well. Our initial descent instructions, obviously. So we're 31 miles from the, well, 30 miles from the next waypoint. Not much of a turn as we pass that. Pretty much just keep going in a straight line. Big difference here is we are heading out over the English Channel and into British airspace. And obviously, as you will see on the GPS map, Birmingham Airfield will come into view very shortly. Still about 200 miles away from Birmingham Airport at this stage, but I would expect we would start descending at around 90 miles out, so once we're just about to come ashore over the English Channel, come ashore onto England, as we pass sort of the Isle of Wight, that kind of area, we should start getting the descent instructions to bring us out of the cruise. Okay, so we have just passed the northern French waypoint, now heading out over the English Channel. You can see from the wing view, top left, that we're just passing over the North French coast now. Yeah, so you can see from the wing view now that the French coastline disappearing off. We're now over the English Channel. So because it's cloudy, you're not really going to make a lot out, but we will have a look to get rid of that. There we are. It's the North French coastline there. And should see the spit of land. It may not be able to make it out because of the cloud, but the Channel Islands are sort of in the general direction that we're looking at. But we're a bit far away from that. So yeah, unfortunately weather's too poor to get a decent sort of view of any distance. Nah. But 120 miles to the next waypoint anyway, and that waypoint will be the point where we're entering into the approach track at Birmingham. So another 6 minutes and we should start getting initial descent instructions. So it'll be around this point now where, because we've changed over to London Centre, that there would be the initial descent instructions. I would expect them in the next couple of minutes at the latest. And there's traffic ahead of us, so we'll be alerted about that as well, I'm pretty sure. Sounds like they're being asked about us. Appears to be descending anyway, so no concern. So yeah, we can report them inside, that's not a problem at all. So we're just coming up on the coast of southern England. As you can see from the GPS map, zoomed it to 150 nautical miles range. We're 64 miles from our next waypoint. We're about 90 miles from our destination. We're just about to cross over the coastline. I would expect those initial descent instructions momentarily. Looking in the top left, that wing view there, the coastline that side is Brighton and heading out towards Eastbourne and onto Hastings and then Dover further along. So over the English coastline now, 46 miles to the next waypoint. The waypoint after that is the Honley VOR, which is just south of Birmingham. 240, so the initial descent. Just as we came over the coastline, so just as we expected really. Bit of a game freeze there for a minute, not sure what was happening there. We're back in business now though. So obviously you hear the engines throttle back now. We are really on the border of overspeed, so we will knock it down just a bit more. Right on the margin of overspeed. As you can see there. We'll slow it down to 300. Should do for where we are at the minute. So about 20 miles from the next waypoint. Exactly an hour into the flight now. And on our initial descent into Birmingham. One more waypoint to go, so an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half. Probably not bad going actually for the flight. Just depends on the runway allocation, which I would expect sort of in the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. And there you have it, a 1-5 approach, so we're coming from the north. It's going to take a bit longer than so yeah, it could, my concerns were that if we got a 1-5 approach, which we have got, it would add time on, and it will add time on because we've got to go around the circuit now at Birmingham for that particular approach. So there's no point in increasing the descent rate at any point now really above what we're doing, because we've still got to fly around the circuit once we get to the airfield anyway. Just means in all it's going to add about 20 minutes onto our flying time, so where the hope was that we would get flight done in an hour and 20 minutes, it's now looking more like an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes. And now one of the foibles with Flight Simulator as well, Flight SimX, is that makes you do all these little weavy turns. So 10,000 feet and heading 355, yeah. 325. If you just notice as well, I've just activated the the vectors on the GPS, so you see in the bottom left hand corner there you will see the entry into the circuit. Okay, so we're going to have to descend a bit steeper here now, considering we're 38 out of the field, so meat-free chicken is actually a thing. That's what Sky News have just said. Apparently KFC are introducing meat-free chicken. Okay. Like to see how they're going to do that somehow. Okay, so we're coming up on Birmingham Airport's terminal area. And Flight Simulator with its random air traffic control system, I don't know how it manages it. We're entering Birmingham's terminal area and we're off to Manchester Centre. But there you go. Okie dokie. Putting us right onto the wide side of the terminal area for the approach. But then again, this is exactly what happened on arrival in Bergerac, actually after the go around. Back to 325 again, so very little adjustment there. Yeah, after the go around at Bergerac on the final approach at Bergerac, well, not the final approach, whilst we were in the hold, it sort of sent us 50 miles away, right on the edge of the terminal area, to then come round and make the approach, which very rarely happens in traffic in real life, that's for sure. I mean, this particular sort of approach into Birmingham can be done a lot tighter than this. fact, quite literally, we are lined up for the absolute outer extremity of that terminal area. As if we need the broadest possible arc to get onto the approach track. I might as well activate the vectors to final now. So it's a cedar approach into Birmingham. Knowing how FSX works these things out, it's pretty much absolutely certain that it's going to fly us almost all the way up to the top of the terminal area before turning us to come back. So unless it gives us a further descent below 10,000, I'll hold at 10,000 pretty much until we're lined up. Okay, so we're right on the very edge now of the terminal area. So we will see now how they turn us for the final. Would you eat a vegan KFC? If you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch for that matter, leave a comment below. So we're starting to book some turbulence here now with this weather. I expect that we will be turned very shortly indeed, but this weather could be interesting as we turn 180 degrees. Here we go. So there we are, there's a turn now to start establishing. So we'll start slowing down now as well.
Turn right, heading 025, 884.
And there's the descent.
Descend and maintain 3000, 884.
bring the speed well below 250 now, because 3000 really is the established on localizer sort of stuff. Oh, sorry, established on glide path.
Contact Oxford approach on 128.825. 128.825 for 884. Oxford approach 884 is out of 9,500 for 3,000. 884 Oxford approach, Roger, UNH 1018.
Okay, how's speed bleeding off going 228? 19 miles out.
884, turn right heading 055.
Might have to bleed some speed off so we can start getting the flaps.
Turn right heading 055, 884.
They have flown us right to the very edge of the terminal area. Again, it's just seems to be like an inbuilt thing in Flight Simulator that that's what it's going to do on every single approach. Every IFR approach is taking you all the way around the terminal area if you have to do a circuit of the field. So we're going to have to go with a bit of speed braking. Might get a sink rate warning here, but that's not an issue at this point in time.
Contact Birmingham Tower on 118.3. Turn right.
Okay, so there's the pattern entry information.
Cleared ILS. Runway 15. Approach. Maintain 2,500 until established. Tower on 118.3884.
And so we go to tower at this point. I'm going to go a bit more flaps just to control, because now we need to put us back onto the localizer.
Birmingham Tower 884, discharge 1 miles northwest, inbound ILS, runway 15, approach 884, Birmingham Tower, fly straight in, runway 15.
We'll reduce the speed
1018.
right down here now as well.
Fly straight in, runway 15, 884.
Ideally I want to be touching down about 135 knots if possible.
$2,500.
Okay, so we're at the altitude for the start of the approach. 2,500 feet. Once we're established on that, then obviously we'll take control and fly the plane in for the rest of the way. Bit more power from the engines just to get us round the turn, to line up with the runway. Okay, we'll add the flaps in now. We're not quite on the glide slope yet, so we're still a bit far out for landing gear at this point. No Cessnas joining us on the approach either, which is a good thing. So hopefully we don't get any go-around calamities like last time. Incidentally, that's also on the Twitch and YouTube channels, the antics with the Bergerac go-around. Well worth a look to see how a Cessna got in our way. So landing gear coming down now. Sutton Park below the aircraft there, that sort of wooded area that looks a bit strange around just sort of skirting the buildings. So if you know the area, we're currently located over Street D, that side of Sutton Park. Okay, and the airfield is now in sight. The runway is in view. And so we will take over control of the descent profile. Need some more flaps, and we'll slow the plane down a little more. It doesn't matter so much in the 737-800 now. If you overshoot the landing, the touchdown point at Birmingham, because the runway extension gives you a much longer runoff area.
Runway 15. Cleared to land, runway 15, 884.
So full flaps now. And now we'll call the speed for call it for 125. Getting a bit buffeted as well. So there are definitely
1,000.
definitely wind conditions for the approach. Bit more power just to keep the speed right. We're a bit low on the approach now, so we'll just pull the nose up a little bit to extend out the glide. There we go.
500.
But we will kill the throttle shortly anyway, once we get to the touchdown point.
400.
Coming over Sheldon Country Park now. That's
300.
the Radley's built up area at the end of Birmingham. Over Sheldon Country Park. Into
200.
the airport boundary. Over the runway area itself.
100.
Kill the arm throttle.
Minimums 50. 40. 30.
And flare for
20.
touchdown.
10.
And we're down. Absolute nightmare to try and steer, I tell you.
Exit runway when able.
We did have reverse thrust there, but that was really difficult to keep control of on the runway there, that's for sure.
Beach, Foxtrot, Golf, Juliet, Tango, Alpha, hold short, runway 15. Traffic is Boeing 737 on the runway.
Alright, let's get off this runway as fast as we can. Bring the flaps in. Oh,
Birmingham Tower, Cessna Golf,
suddenly went really uncontrollable there.
miles northeast with Hotel Delay. 884, turn next taxiway. Cessna Golf, Whiskey, Sierra Tango, Birmingham Tower, enter left base, runway 15, UNH 1018884, contact ground on 121.8, Beach, Foxtrot, Golf, Juliet, Tango, Alpha, cleared for takeoff, runway 15. Cleared for takeoff, runway 15, Beach, Foxtrot, Golf, Juliet, Tango, Alpha. Make left base, runway 15, Cessna Zulu Sierra Tango.
So where the issue was there, the reason why I kept getting moved off the approach, off the runway, was because the flight director was still on, and was still trying to hold the approach track, so it was fighting with me all the time. Which is never a fun thing. I should have knocked that off really, first of all, but it keeps us on the localizer, so it is important.
Taxi into position and hold. Position and hold, Piper Sierra. Birmingham ground, 884, taxi to the gate. 884, taxi to gate 76.
76. Kind of a bit fast here.
Taxi to gate 76, 884.
76. I know where we're going. Not sure why it hasn't offered progressive parking, but oh well. Whoops-a-daisy. Right, brakes. It's the next one. And there we go. A very eventful day's flying, in fact, today. To Bergerac and back. A go around because of an errant Cessna. On approach earlier today at Bergerac. And that's pretty much uneventful flight back to Birmingham from Bergerac there. Apart from the landing there, which was a bit, yeah, it could have been a lot better really. But considering we're using the keyboard for this flight from start to finish, that's quite impressive in its own right, I would say. So there we are. We're back at Birmingham. We'll get some stairs because obviously there's no air bridge there. Get some stairs. And that's it. I hope you'll join me next time. Follow us on Twitter at JKCUK and I'll let you know about what the next flight is. I'll be doing one tomorrow evening from probably about 5 maybe 6 o'clock for a few hours. So keep an eye out on Twitter. I'll advise where we'll be going next from there. For today, thanks very much for joining us. So long. Enjoy the rest of your evening.